This is the WWE NXT July 8, 2025 full show results video. The show started with a gauntlet match between Ricky Saints versus The Vanity Project. Brad Baylor starts the match with Saints, then Baylor puts up a good fight, but Saints gets the pin after a tornado DDT. Ricky Smokes is up next, then Smokes clobbers Saints from behind and works him over. Smokes eventually runs into a Manhattan drop into a jackknife cover for the pin. Jackson Drake is next. Drake is all over Saints, working over his back. Drake tries a swanton, then Saints gets his knees up, lariat by Saints, then Saints hits the Rochambeau to win the match by pinfall. After the match, Saints tells Paige that he has chosen to face him in a Falls Count Anywhere match for his North American Championship at the Great American Bash. Laney Reed then shows up to talk trash, then Kalani Jordan talks about Reed getting all up in people's business for no reason. Reed then says she's the future of the division and Jordan says to show her. We then see video footage from earlier today of Jordynne Grace working out at the Performance Center when Blake Monroe calls her. Grace then answers and asks where Blake was and Blake says she assumes Grace is in the gym in a black sports bra. Blake then says they are having a glamour workout with nails, massage and more. Grace then says she'll come if Blake stops talking, then Blake says Grace is so funny and we'll see her soon. Grace then gets in the SUV and arrives somewhere where she gets out and says, You've got to be kidding me. The next match happened between Tavian Heights versus Charlie Dempsey, and if Heights wins, he can leave the NQCC. We see Dempsey trips Heights, and his leg ends up trapped between the ring steps and the ring post. Dempsey pushes Ren Sinclair out of the way and repeatedly stomps Heights' leg. Dempsey traps Heights in a leg lock. We see Heights struggles to get to the ropes. Dempsey torments Heights with several submission holds. Heights refuses to submit, a teary-eyed Sinclair throws in the towel to end the match, and the winner of this match was Charlie Dempsey. We then see J. Yvonne Evans psyching up Hank and Tank backstage. Jasper Troy then shows up and tosses Evans into the garage door to leave him laying. The next match happened between Joe Hendry and Mike Santana versus High Rise. We see DuPont and Igwe double-team Santana early. Santana and Hendry clear the ring. After the break, Igwe and DuPont are working over Hendry, then Santana gets the tag and lands a flurry of offense. Lee distracts the referee, then TNA World Champion Trick Williams runs down to ringside and sends Hendry into the ring steps. Back in the ring, Santana drops DuPont with spin the block to win the match by pinfall. After the match, Williams blindsides Hendry with a leg lariat. Hendry then nails him, but Lee nails Hendry. Lee then beats down Santana and DuPont and Igwe hold Hendry in place for Williams to hit the trick shot on him. Dark State is then cutting a promo in a smoky room, and Dion Lennox talks about how they left Matt Cardona laying last week on Impact. Saquon Sugars then says they'll be doing more in TNA down the road. Cutler James then says they'll be looking at the tag title match later, then Dion yells about how you won't see Dark State coming. Yashiki Inamura and Josh Briggs then make their way down to the ring and WWE NXT champion Oba Femi follows. Inamura starts off by saying Femi wanted to see what he was made of, then reminds Femi that he beat Jasper Troy to become the #1 contender. He then says Femi will be his greatest challenge yet, but he will fight with honor and become the new NXT champion. Femi then says Inamura may have the support of his fans, family, and friends. He then says they can be the ones to pick up the pieces of Inamura when he fights with honor, then advises Inamura to ask if he can take a loss with honor and says Inamura will come up short against him. Briggs then grabs Inamura's microphone and stands up for Inamura, then he tells Femi that Inamura will beat him, then says while Inamura is a man with honor, he isn't because he is a man of mayhem. Femi then tells Inamura to tell Briggs to get out of his face, but Briggs begins brawling with Femi. Femi then clotheslines Briggs out of the ring, but Inamura hits a body slam on Femi, then officials run down to the ring to keep the two men apart. We then return to the salon and Grace says no. Grace then says she needs to focus so she is taking an Uber back. Blake then calls Grace a muscle muffin and says Grace works out all the time, so they need to do this. Grace then says fine. We then see Blake putting Grace in a robe, which she removes the sleeves off. They then get their nails done and go for a massage, but Grace asks if the masseuse is going to start yet. Blake then tells Grace that the two things can coexist, then Grace gets makeup and doesn't hate it. Grace then says this isn't her bag and they talk about how they need to get the title off JC. Grace then says she does kind of like this, then they say first they beat Fatal Influence at the Bash, then Grace beats JC at Evolution and thanks Blake for the day. The next match happened between Kalani Jordan versus Laney Reed. The match starts off with Jordan tripping Reed, both women then continue going back and forth, but Jordan hits a monkey flip on Reed and dropkicks her through the middle rope. In the end, Jordan then sends Reed crashing into the mat with a fireman's carry, but Reed nails Jordan with an enzwajiri and joins her on the top rope, then Jordan responds with a moonsault on Reed to win the match by pinfall. After the match, Thea Hale blindsides Reed and brawls with her to the back. We then see a medic checking on J. Yvonne Evans in the medical room. Jasper Troy then shows up and attacks Evans even more. Officials then drag Troy away. We then see Tony D'Angelo walking into a warehouse where a table is set up. Luca Cruzifino then shows up as does Stax. They nearly fight, but Rizzo is there. She then tells them all to sit down and then says she wouldn't have stayed in hiding forever and she called it, and as she was in the safe house she saw them lose focus on everything the family has done. She then says Stax and Tony created a legacy bringing in Luca and her, taking people to the bridge, eating at the restaurant, and they destroyed it all. Tony then says to take it easy and she points out how she tried to get Tony to talk things out. Luca then asks if she thought they would solve this and she said yes, but she sees that's impossible. She then points out the divisions between them and says once trust is broken, doubt creeps in and all is lost. She then says she did what she had to do and talked to Ava and it will be a triple threat match next week. She then says this is WWE and she can't say their pasts won't cross again, but this is the final battle. Tony then says he thinks that Luca is on Stax's side, then Stax says he's winning next week and Tony says Stax and Luca should share the cup. Luca then says he's getting away from them to do anything in NXT, Tony then says this is over. They all then stand up and Stax tells Tony not to let him catch him alone. Luca then says, the one time, I try to do something by myself. The commentators then try to check in, but Jasper Troy is in the ring demanding that Ava book Jasper Troy versus J. Yvonne Evans at the Great American Bash. J. Yvonne Evans then storms to the ring, but crumples when Troy hits him in the injured ribs. Security then tries to keep both men apart, then Evans recovers and hits Troy and a bunch of security with a dive, then security drags Evans to the back. We then see the culling in their dark room and Tatum walks in, then Sean says they're glad to have her and Izzy says their home is her home. Nico then says they get the titles tonight, he took down Hank and Tank once and will do it again. He then gets worked up about the assumption he attacked them and Sean says to calm down. Izzy then says they'll win the tag titles and she will win the Women's North American title at Great American Bash, then Tatum says all her new friends will have gold. Then we saw a match between Hank and Tank versus the culling for the WWE NXT Tag Team Championship. We see Sol Ruca attacks Izzy Dame from behind and brawls with her to the back as Zarya carries Paxley behind them. Ledger then runs over Vance with a shoulder tackle and looks to hit a double splash on him, but Spears pushes Vance out of the way and takes the maneuver. Walker and Ledger then clothesline Vance out of the ring and double team on Spears for the pinfall victory, and retains the Tag Team Championship. NXT GM Ava announces the NXT participants for the Evolution Battle Royal: Jada Parker, Lola Vice, Kalani Jordan, Lash Legend, Izzy Dame, and Tatum Paxley. NXT Women's Champion Jacy Jayne and the rest of Fatal Influence interrupt. Jayne complains about not being the focus of Ava's entire existence. Jordan Grace, Lash Legend, Stephanie Vacker, Natalya, Maxine Dupree, Zelina Vega, Ivy Nile, Jada Parker, Julia, and basically everyone else surround the ring. Parker says it's her time, slides into the ring, and starts a massive brawl, and the show goes off the air. How much you would rate this week's NXT show? Tell me in the comments, and thanks for watching.